Next, we have, going over to another continent, Tom Butler, who is the Vice President for Conservation Advocacy for the Tompkins Conservation Family of Foundations. Conservationist and writer, Tom's most recent book, Overdevelopment, Overpopulation, and Overshoot, or just OVER for short, is a photo format volume depicting how human numbers and behavior are transforming the Earth. He also curated the new exhibit, Douglas R. Tompkins on Beauty, and co-authored the companion book about the way that beauty was an animating force in the life and work of the late Doug Tompkins, founder of the Tompkins Conservation. Tom?
Thank you and good afternoon. 3 questions. Can national parks save the world? Can national parks help save us? Could an emboldened national park movement, catalyzed by private philanthropy, begin to move us quickly toward a half-Earth vision, where at least half of the planet in terrestrial and marine protected areas, beautiful green and blue ribbons encircle the globe, sustaining all of life's diversity? 3 answers, yes, yes, and gosh, I hope so. Because that is the vision of Tompkins Conservation, of Christine McDivitt Tompkins and her late husband, Douglas Tompkins, and the Tompkins Conservation team that they assembled and have jointly led over the last quarter century. In the few minutes that I have, I can't even begin to scratch the surface discussing that work, the story of how 2 American entrepreneurs left their careers in business and went off and turned their entrepreneurial talents to saving wild nature, or the 7 new national parks that they've already helped establish, or the millions of acres already conserved, or the rewilding programs implemented. I can't get to much detail about that. But even before I get to talk about it superficially, before I talk about the what and the how of that work, I want to talk about the why. And that begins with a story, the story of this place. Not long ago, I was in the Chacabuco Valley of southern Chile, enjoying this landscape of resurgent wildness. I was with 3 companions. My hiking companions were all accomplished photographers, so for some reason they wanted to stop and take pictures. So I spent most of the day by myself, alone with my thoughts, with the company of the bird song and the sound of the wind, enjoying this scene, the rebounding grasslands and the teeming herds of guanacos. And the little pockets of forest that I walked through are key strongholds for the endangered huemul, or South Andean deer. But recall that this landscape of resurgent wildness had looked like this in 2004 when a Tompkins-led nonprofit acquired this large private sheep ranch, the former Estancia Valle Chacabuco, to commence one of the world's largest grasslands restoration projects. And in the subsequent years, thousands of the head of sheep and cattle were sold, and the more than 400 miles of fencing were ripped out, and soil erosion programs implemented, rewilding and wildlife conservation programs implemented. And today, it looks more like this. All of that work was to set the stage for this property's eventual donation to the public, when the privately assembled conservation lands would be joined up with 2 adjacent existing national reserves to form the future Patagonia National Park. This will be a Yosemite-scale protected area that will support some of the richest wildlife habitat in Patagonia. And as you can see, it's a pretty cool place to be going hiking. And as dusk neared, the sun started to go down, and this is the sky that we saw that night. We threw our sleeping bags down on the ground, and we witnessed this spectacle. And it was pretty exciting to be under those heavens. It was also a little bit exciting to know that where we were camped is mountain lion habitat. Now, I have a group of amazing colleagues The biologist team at Patagonia Park has been conducting this long-running study of the interactions between the mountain lions and the huemuls so that we know if there's going to be a negative impact on the imperiled population of deer from the healthy population of large cats. So I know that the mountain lions do not eat middle-aged hikers from Vermont. They don't. I've seen the data. But viscerally, to throw your sleeping bag down on the ground and to see the sun go down over the horizon line and the shadows start to lengthen and you know that there could be a mountain lion just beyond your vision in those woods, well, that is the essence of a wilderness experience. To be in a landscape that is self-willed, where the land is not yoked to human will, human desire to manage, manipulate, and exploit. Where the land is home to self-willed creatures free to flourish in their own ways. And so it was a pleasure to awake to this sunrise on San Lorenzo and to know that what I had experienced there, solitude, spiritual renewal, muscle-powered recreation, scenic beauty, abundant wildlife, all those values that we associate with national parks for 150 years now, all of those things that I had experienced are going to be available to everyone forevermore to experience in the future Patagonia National Park due to this recent agreement between Tompkins Conservation and the Chilean government. In March of this year, Chris Tompkins stood with President Michelle Bachelet in Pumalín Park, our other flagship project in South Chile. And there they announced the largest ever expansion of a national park system anywhere, prompted by a donation of private land. Tompkins Conservation pledged to give essentially all of our remaining land holdings in Chile, roughly 1 million acres, along with all of the public use infrastructure that we've built at Pumalín Park and Patagonia Park. And in turn, the government agreed to upgrade several existing national reserves to national park status and to throw in some additional government land. And when fully executed, this deal will create 5 new national parks, expand 3 existing national parks, and add roughly 10 million acres to national park designation. So for context, that's more than 3 times the size of Yosemite and Yellowstone combined. It's a big deal. It's worth clapping for that. It is a big deal. And across the Andes in Argentina, Tompkins Conservation has also had ambitious and successful major protected areas conservation successes, including this place, Ibará National Park in Corrientes province, where our team is running the most ambitious rewilding program in Latin America, trying to reintroduce missing species and processes into the great Ibará marshlands. And here we've reintroduced giant anteaters, pampas deer, collared peccaries, green-winged macaws, and other species. And the capstone of this program, ultimately, is an effort to breed jaguars and release their offspring into the wilds. This captive breeding facility that we maintain at a private reserve deep within the marshlands now hosts a group of cats, very amorous cats, we are hoping, ready to repopulate the Ibará with their progeny. And this effort has widespread popular, local, and political, provincial, and national support. For example, this nice family that came to visit a few weeks ago and spent the weekend with the Tompkins Conservation Rewilding team learning how, in fact, new national parks and work to augment and conserve wildlife populations and promote related ecotourism, all those things can work synergistically to create positive outcomes for nature and people. Did anyone happen to notice or recognize this nice family? That would be the First Lady of Argentina, along with President Mauricio Macri and their daughter, here to spend a weekend learning about wildlife reintroduction. So why focus on expanding and creating national parks? Because they are the oldest and the most durable and the best loved tool for permanently protecting natural habitat, as well as introducing people to the life-supporting beauty of healthy and intact ecosystems. And donating private land to become public natural areas is an old and effective conservation tool. The first national park in Argentina resulted from a gift of private land to the state from Francisco Perito Moreno in 1903. But I could have just as easily put a picture up here of Acadia National Park, or Muir Woods, or Great Smoky Mountains, or Grand Teton, or Killarney National Park in Ireland, or Torres del Paine in Chile, or even Gorongosa. There are so many examples of park-related philanthropy in conservation history. This agreement between Tompkins Conservation and the Bachelet government, along with several earlier examples of successful park creation with multiple presidents of different political persuasions, shows the power of public-private collaboration. Chris and Doug Tompkins have really offered the world here a model of an engaged, park-focused philanthropy at an unprecedented scale, an old tool applied at an unprecedented scale, but which can be, and this is the most important point, please remember it, but which can be replicated and expanded further. Now, of course, we're engaged in this work because we believe in the full array of ecological, economic, experiential values of protected areas. But we also believe that the ultimate argument for conservation, for the ideas we are discussing today, the ultimate argument for conservation is because wild places and wild creatures have a right to exist for their own sake. They do not require us to value them to be valuable. When Chris Tompkins was awarded the Carnegie Medal of Philanthropy a few weeks ago in New York, she led her remarks with a compelling statement about the intrinsic value of nature. Because humanity represents just but one species of millions on Earth, we have an ethical obligation to be good neighbors in the community of life and good relations. Because if we take the idea of evolution seriously, we are not just metaphorically related to our wild kin, we are literally related to everything that is alive, to everything that has ever been alive on this planet. My daughter Grace here is with her cousins, whether more nearly or distantly related. So national parks alone may not save the world, but the evolving national park idea, in that it embodies that commitment to be good neighbors in the community of life, is a crucial component of planetary healing. We believe that collectively, national parks can be those charismatic anchors of that future interconnected global scale network of protected areas that eventually conserves at least half, and hopefully much more ultimately than half, of planet Earth, and will be a means to incrementally slow and then stop the global extinction crisis. And protected areas also offer an invitation to remember who we are, to rewild ourselves. They help rebut old narratives about dominion, conquest, colonization. They offer a new story about communion and reciprocity. They're a place to remember our deepest longings for connection, our deepest longings for kinship, and public-private partnerships to create and expand national parks and other forms of protected areas, catalyzed by private philanthropy, supported by bold and vigorous advocacy, are a crucial means to that future that we seek, the future that we are discussing here today, the future that embodies the half-Earth idea, a future that is characterized by beauty, integrity, health, and wildness, with freedom and habitat for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. It was quite inspiring. And the fact that this wonderful model can be replicated elsewhere is indeed a really powerful take-home for this audience, I hope.